Hello, and welcome to another episode. I wanted to play some Frostgrave, but realised I didn't have enough terrain to cover a whole board. So I'm making some very quick and easy, basic ruins, using the classic L-shaped corner pieces and a stacker to put them on. So going for maximum versatility, I'm being able to use this as a playable piece of terrain. To start out with, drew a template on some foam core, and then trimmed enough pieces to make it about 1.5 inches high, using hot glue to connect the foam core together. I left some spaces between the foam core because I wasn't sure at this point if I wanted some alcoves or perhaps some doorways going into the stacker. For the ruins, I took a rectangle of foam core, cut it in half, then glued it back together at a 90-degree angle, varying it up between some L shapes and some T-shaped pieces. With a fair few of these pieces made, I checked the templates against the stacker and made sure I could make some interesting designs and that they worked standalone. Then taking a piece of under 4 insulation board, but any kind of styrofoam will do, I rolled a tinfoil ball over it and carved flagstones in, and this will provide the base on the top of the stacker. A lot of materials I used for this are offcuts and bits left over, so if you're wondering why I'm using weird material, it's because I was trying to clear my desk. With all the flagstones carved out and some cracks added, I attached the top using more hot glue. Using the same technique, I created the base layer at the bottom of the stacker, and I wanted a clear distinction between two different types of stones, just to break up having a plain brick wall. Using more hot glue to attach it. For the rest of the stonework, I used the classic method, so a styrofoam block, trim it down into rectangles, roll it with a tinfoil ball, then glue it around as if it's real brickwork. I did the same for the freestanding ruins, again grabbing whatever styrofoam I had on hand, which in this case was more rough cuts. Annoyingly, I don't have any more of the grey stuff, which is the most useful type. Oh well. I did the same method I'd used on the stacker, varying up the brickwork, so you get a bit more variety than a plain stone wall. I also swapped a matte Mod Podge here, because hot glue can be a little bit overkill when you're using the finer brickwork, and you can end up with big globs and strings sticking out between the bricks. I also created a simple stairway using more foam core and rectangles of the insulation board, just gluing them on top of each other, using a triangle of foam core as a guideline. For the concrete and the decaying mortar between the brickwork, I mixed up some sculptor mould and started applying it between the bricks where there were large gaps, and on the foam core that was sandwiched between the two brick layers. This could be okay, but I wanted to add some dirt and more kind of crumbly rock stuff, so I mixed up some texture paste using fine sand, black gesso and PVA glue. Then globbed it over the sculptor mould, so you get some nice crumbly rock. I also applied some to the stacker, so you get some general detritus and scatter, making sure it was very flat so it wouldn't interrupt with anything sitting or standing on top of it. Keeping in mind I want this to be as fully usable as possible, so we're sacrificing a bit of the visuals in exchange for gameplay. Once the paste had dried, I went in with more black gesso and primed the entire thing. Keeping the colour scheme very basic, followed the black layer with burnt umber, then gave a heavy-handed dry brush of white paint over the top. I also didn't consistently cover it with the burnt umber, so you get a bit more variation that would be visible underneath the white, and just make it look a bit more varied than if I'd just done a coat of white paint. With the white dry, I took some packaging foam, but a sponge will do, and took some green-yellow paint and dabbed it onto the sides, so we get some nice kind of lichen or moss. Taking a foam flock and a regular cork flock, I mixed them together with some PVA to make a nice foliage slime. This stuff can be a pain to apply, but I find it's worth it, and you can also use it to fill any gaps at this point. So I applied it primarily between the brickwork, just to blend it together a bit, add a bit more green, and break up any flatness on the brick wall. At this stage, I realised I hated the lower half of the stacker, so taking a weird knife, I trimmed the entire bottom part off, and put it to one side to recycle into something else. It's a good basis for rubble, or random scatter. This also meant the stairs were too high, but luckily when I cut them in two, they were about the right size, so I'd have two stairs instead. Just trimming them down, and sealing any exposed bits. I did have to add some stonework to the lower half, but it gives me an entire another stairway, so it's still a net gain. I was also lazy and just used some texture paste, as this one's getting a bit dry and crusty, so I'm trying to use up as much as I can. The advantage of the quick and easy paint scheme, it's very easy to reblend stuff together, and touch up areas where the paint didn't quite land. So there we have it, a fully kind of modular ruin thing. Nice bit of elevated terrain, complete with a little glue strand. Let's get rid of that. And yeah, as playable as I think I could make it. And that'll be good for a game of Frostgrave or whatever D&D stuff I'm doing. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I hope to catch you next time.